Right. So let me just promote these panelists. Welcome, Mani. Hey, Slimer. So good to have you here. So perfect. Yasmin's here from Yasmin. You are amazing. You're such a trooper. Do not be fooled by the sunny daylight behind Yasmin. She's stayed up all night in Morocco to join us. So yeah. 1 second. Here we go. Okay, I've tagged as many of you as possible. If you want, you could create a watch party. No, that's not working. Okay, I'm going to do this again in a moment. So, well, welcome. Do you want to lead us?
Sure.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Joshua. Happy to be here sitting at this beautiful table with my family and welcoming all of you who are online. We're so excited to have you. We've had so much joy putting on these dinners, sharing and learning from everyone, inviting them into our home as best we can these days. But we've got some food here that's nice and fresh and just plated, so what I'd like to do is just make a prayer and we can get to eating and then continue the introductions. So let's do it. Deep gratitude to the four winds, to the elementals, to Mother Earth, to Father Sky, to the Great Spirit and the Great Mystery. Deep gratitude to be alive and embodied, with a mind to think, eyes to see, a voice to speak, a heart to feel, a belly to know. To be grounded here and now and present with people that we love, people that we admire, people that we seek to connect to. Just giving thanks for the focus tonight, which is community. Just heart full of gratitude to be surrounded by people in a time that so many are isolated. Just thankful to be able to sit at a table with many that I love dearly and get to share this meal with. And thanks to the hands that grew this food, that delivered this food, that prepared this food, that got it here in front of us so delicious and ready to give us sustenance. Looking forward to all the conversation tonight and just opening the space up for heartfelt sharing. Oh.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Right, beautiful. There we go. Well, so welcome. Please do start, guys. Welcome. Welcome to the Savannah House dining room table. And this topic is, I've been looking forward to this for weeks. If there's one thing that defines my life, it's community. And that I think of as the greatest inheritance I had, and I learned community from my father, who was a great community builder and community supporter. He helped create the world's largest community around disability in India. And grew up around that, and then spent the last 12 years working with communities around societal change. And so what we wanted to do today was to bring some of those dear friends that I have great respect for around this conversation of how do we fund communities as vehicles for change. And the intro here is it's the next stage of the game. We launched the Unified Planet game on Earth Day, just a little less than a month ago now, which has flown by. And in 48 hours, we brought together like over 100 performers, and speakers, and contributors across 4 stages and 32 hours of content. And then since then, we've launched this game structure where every 2 weeks we pick a new topic and bring together subject matter experts to play this 8-week game that goes from seed, blossom, seed, sprout, blossom, harvest. And we bring people on a journey where it's all about creating community solutions for the planetary commons. And just to give a couple of examples as we go through this, because the next game kicking off on the 1st of June is all around community for impact, this is a kind of intro dinner. And to give some examples of others where we're at, we just today completed round 2, which is the sprout stage for sound, and that initial group of 22 people birthed the Unified Planet Sound Alliance, which is creating the science of sound matrix, a whole new language around like how do we define sound, and a kind of almost like an industry body for sound practitioners. And they're also creating a comic, which is pretty epic, with a comic character called Sonic, and another one called Echo, another one called Sonar, and the comic is a way of kind of telling the hero's journey as to how sound can transform society. That's the alliance, and then 2 guilds formed. One is called the Sound Technology Guild, which has already got 2 big projects. One of them is a spin-off called Sound Helix, which is a new crystal bowl company to create an alternative to Crystal Tones, which is the market leader. But this crystal bowl company is a self-playing bowl. So it will actually have a robotic arm that will play itself. So you can wake up in the morning to your crystal bowl, or you could put your children to sleep to a crystal bowl, or you can tune into like live performances. And it's the Tom Shoes of crystal bowls. So it's a 1-for-1 model. For every crystal bowl purchased, one will be sent into a school, into a hospital, into a VA program. The idea is to like distribute sound as a healing technology. And on top of that, Amanda Gregory is putting a whole experience layer. And so that's in the Technology Guild. And then the final one, this is just to kind of set the scene for like how the game is producing. The final one is the Sound Portal Guild, and they are coming up with structures to have physical spaces to bring people into immersive experiences for sound in cities, starting with San Francisco, actually starting with front space in front of with my trailer called Pegasus, which is going to be the Virgin Sound Portal. So they're all presenting tomorrow, and then today we just finished the final seed round for food, and we synthesized 8 different channels: food justice, food reverence, food genome, food culture, food waste, food technology, food and land stewardship, and then community regenerative development. And so each one of those has got different community solutions that ultimately will go on this journey towards funding. And so the whole intention here is to create this network of networks, that kind of DAOs around communities, where ultimately we can go to investors with a whole stack of solutions that have been applied by collective intelligence by the best people we know in the industry, so that they, instead of each one of those going to raise by themselves, we can start to go out with a stack of solutions that funders can fund. That's the intention of it. So that's hopefully that's a good intro. Yeah, wanted to really welcome everyone and say thank you so much. We've got Marnie here, Melissa here. You've met Teresa and Brian, Hunter there, and you met Danny, and then Joshua has been leading the amazing cooking tonight. So delighted to have everyone here, and maybe just kick off with, what if people could go around and just share their thoughts on like, how do you believe the kind of return to community, this community renaissance that's happening, a community remembrance, maybe we could call it, that's happening as a result of COVID? How do you feel that will, transform society in the next 10 years? Maybe just to start with a big thought like that. Whoever would like to start. And I'm going to call on someone if they... Yeah. Nichol. You're muted.
So I was being naughty and responding to something. So tell me again what I should do.
What role, what would you say, what role will community play in defining the next 10 years in your view, in your vision, like this moment of return to community?
Community is going to play a significant role. Just the other day I was looking at an analysis of post Spanish flu joy, and just sort of what people were doing and what was common after that. And so basically the people actually rushed back into the streets as soon as they could. They rushed back into interactions as soon as they could. Now that was, a different time, but I think, today what you sort of see in all of the social trends is a deep desire to be deeply connected to one another. And, the difference between then and now is that, the nuclear family isn't dominant the way it was at that time. People have moved all over the country. Things have changed significantly. And so, I think our communities are an extension of our families. I think our communities are our psychographic families. I think that people are going to really be looking to community, which also will include communities of families and families of communities, for sort of the social glue. I think one of the things that's good from, what's happening from this time period is people are really re-experiencing what it's like to take time with one another. I don't know if you and I talked about it, but I have my housemate and I also have dinner together every night, unless something has come up. And so that is not something that we always did, actually, but we do it all the time, and I schedule around it so that he and I can have dinner. The only reason why I'm not having dinner with him is because I'm having dinner with you guys. And so, I think you're going to see this sort of pivot back to things that people feel are really important. And that's going to be deeply embedded in community. And I think communities are also going to become action points. This morning I was at the Minerva graduation, and one of the lovely young people that I was talking to has been working on urban gardens. And so we had this wonderful conversation about the roles that these urban gardens play in sort of reconnecting urban communities to one another. And there's some really stellar examples of what's happening there. So, I think that the next decade is really going to be marked by people coming together around the higher levels on Maslow's hierarchy. And a lot of that, isn't necessarily because, security and the basics are covered, but a lot of it's going to have to do over the next decade with, what automation does remove. And so everything's sort of going to move up towards human interaction. And with that increase in, an importance of human interaction skills, people being together, mental and emotional health and well-being, all of these things, the importance of community and belonging is going to become, greater. And people are really going to lean into those things for, the ties that bind.
Thank you so much, Nicole. This is I think, speaking of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think this is a great place to welcome the dear brother Ram with the New Earth Manifesto, which has been launching, that deeply relates to this point. And something I've been thinking about for a long time with Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that Maslow basically got it wrong. It's not actually, it's not like once you achieve one level, your needs fundamentally shift. There's like the backbone of the hierarchy of needs is actually community. It's a constant and it changes. It's almost like spiral dynamics, and Maslow's hierarchy had a baby. The community is this spiral that at every level of Maslow's hierarchy, your needs for community changes. And this actually explains like partisan politics. And so if we reframe Maslow's hierarchy to think of it through a community lens, we actually have this like huge opportunity here to think through how do we flip Maslow's hierarchy of needs from an upright pyramid into an upside down pyramid by focusing on the community aspect. So just some thoughts there. But Ram, welcome, brother. Ram is an amazing social entrepreneur, mystic, musician, polymath, Renaissance man, like creator of the New Earth Manifesto, co-founder of Unify, creates world's largest synchronized meditations, and someone I'm honored to call a dear brother.
Thank you, Lucian. So good to see you, Nicole. It's been too long. Good to see all of your beautiful faces and all of you out there. I'll just touch in on what you spoke for a minute, Lucian. It's when Maslow revised his hierarchy and put at the top self-realization, not just self-actualization, but self-realization or awakening. Once you reach the awakened state, or you've moved through all of the karma and you've learned that you're the master of your dream, and you've achieved your physical, relational, all of the parts of your life you feel like pretty whole in, what do? What is left to do? And you see this in the people who have conquered the game of capitalism. And I'm sure many of us here in the room know those people. Either you use that immense gift that you've been given to serve the good of the whole with all of your light or life force, or it implodes you. That's just the way of it. That's the nature of karma. If you have been, gifted in this lifetime with the capacity of receiving an abundance of wealth, the only thing that is there to do is to steward it effectively for the good of the whole. There's nothing else to do. Everything else is empty. Everything else is meaningless. You can only accumulate so much. Where are you traveling to now? Where are your carnivals and ships and yachts now? What matters? It doesn't. And people know that, right? But there's a trap. The trap is that once you move into that state, you're so isolated at the top of this pyramid, right? Because of the nature of accumulation, that you find it very difficult to trust those around you. But when you inverse this, you look at beings like Amma, right? All people don't know, but Amma runs a multi-billion-dollar charity, 300 million volunteers around the world serving, right? But she's empty. She's completely empty. She's there in the same little apartment she's been in 30 years. Her concept of individuality has changed. She's been merged existentially with the whole, and she sees other as the whole itself. It's not a concept to her anymore. It is her lived reality. It's her existential reality. And that's self-realization. And at that stage, the Maslow's hierarchy flips, because all you're doing and all your life force and light is to serve the good of the whole. And this is where the philosophy from Adam Smith to this new economic system has changed, where Adam Smith said that the invisible hand of capitalism will serve through self-interest. Now the self and the whole are one. So serving the interest of the whole is serving the interest of the self. And that is the evolution. And so as systems change agents, and as this quote unquote conscious awakening that's happening across the planet is really an awakening to remembering our interconnection. It's as simple as that. It really is not more complicated. It is that we are breathing the same air. We are drinking the same water. We're of the same earth. All light powers everything we see existentially, scientifically. Every bite of food you're eating right now around your dinner table came because there's light. We are made of the light. Right? Once we understand those basic foundational principles, then we reorient our society to make sure that the air is clean, the water is pure, the earth is stewarded, each other are taken care of. The values of compassion, of stewardship, of love become the spinal column of this new manifesto that we collectively agree to. But we need clear collective agreements. When 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, 500 million of us stand together and agree to a new charter. And then that charter, that spinal column, is then reflected in principles. And those principles are then reflected out into the systemic change initiatives that are the byproducts of those principles. And we lock arms together in seeing how we manifest those, right? Then all of our technologies and all of the things that we've been building come in the lockstep with each other into a synchronized, unit. And we're all waiting for that. We're all just been doing our work, both individually, purging and clearing our karmas, purging and clearing all of our own ancestral wounding to come to a place where internally we're ready so that those outer systems can manifest. And we're in the time. I feel it burgeoning. We're moving to it.
Yeah.
And so from Saturday 11 to 1 and Sunday 11 to 1, we're bringing together some incredible thought leaders like Charles Eisenstein and Daniel Schmachtenberger and Amanda Joy Ravenhill, and just a group of beautiful systems change agents to look at how do we actually build this next collective Wikipedia from this New Earth Manifesto? How does it become actionable in a way that's really tangible? And, it's not coming from one person anymore. We need to use our technologies, which are incredibly suited for this moment. We need to use the best from artificial intelligence knowledge synthesization with the pure intention of the heart to create this framework and to synthesize our knowledge and information in a way that serves the whole. And we're gonna discover that together.
I can't wait to be there, brother. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're such a archetypal character of our times, brother. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, Selena is here with us. I'm so delighted to have you here. It's your first dinner portal, and we've been friends for at least a decade. And massive respect for Selena, and she is just launching a new community platform, community movement called Women Reignite. So deep into the trenches of community change, community empowerment, and women's rights issues. I'd love for you to share for the next 10 years. And you've got the sexiest studio I've ever seen.
This is my home, I'm working from home and I'm so proud of it, And just like yourself, Lucian, by the way, it's so good to see you. I prefer to see you in real life. I love the dinners of Lucian in his house and the parties, but I'm stuck in Palo Alto, so it has to be virtual. I spent the last 4 years transforming myself from being a speaker, traveling the world, to actually take everything I do online with one purpose, and that is to make all education accessible and affordable for the ones who cannot afford it. I'm a school dropout myself from 7th grade, and I've always been, impacted and kind of, sad about the fact that I never, had access to the same kind of education that most people had. I knew I was undereducated. I knew I could probably have done better in life if I didn't have to figure everything out myself. I moved away from my home when I was 13. I lived in foster care, children's homes. I really had a troubled upbringing. And I always knew that at some point I would love to disrupt education and disrupt access to wisdom. But I never really knew how to do it. And I wrote tons of books. I did a lot of speaking, but I never really understood how to impact at scale. Then 4 years ago, Lucian knows the full story. I was stuck in Austin on a visa. Remember, Lucian? And I couldn't work, and it was really, awful. And then actually my husband, with whom I've been married and together with for 25 years, he said, let's just go online. And I said, what do you mean by go online? I'm a speaker, I'm an author, what do you mean? And he said, but you have so much content and you have all those amazing people that you know from all over the world. And people actually pick up the phone when you call, and they just, they just show up when you tell them to. So why don't you take that and put that online? And I first thought, who am I to think that I can build anything online? I never even joined an online community myself. I didn't know how to do it. And we actually managed to build probably the biggest online community in Scandinavia. I have, let me think, 4 or 5 different communities, and we just beta launched very recent a launch, and we made $1.2 million. We made $60,000 in 1 week. We were very, very profitable. And should I feel ashamed about being profitable? I don't think so. It's how you spend your money, and you can have premium content, and you can have free content and all that. And I don't think we should ever be afraid of making money. It is how you spend your money that is really crucial. So before this dinner, I had a meeting with a new team of software developers, because we are going to build the biggest online platform in the United States of America, including women from all over US who cannot afford access to the best content from the best universities. I think that's awesome. That's what that I can do, because I made money from the richer countries like Scandinavia. And so what I see is, Lucian, did we go to Japan together? I don't remember. Did we do? Yeah. I traveled to more countries than I can count with Lucian. So that's why I have to ask him, did we go to Japan together? We did. Okay. What really was fascinating about going to Japan, among many things, was that in 2040, so only, in recent future, 39% of all households will be single households. And when I look at my kids, when I look at people around me, people like you guys have an amazing community, and I grew up like you guys in a community house and all that, and that's amazing. But that's not going to be the way our young people are going to live. They're probably they're not even going to have sex. They're not going to like touching each other. We grew up in a very special time where you could have sex and touch and kiss people. That's not something that you can take for granted in the future. So is it all bad? I don't know. I think, in some way that the society today is more inclusive. Let me explain. If you're disabled, if you have social issues, if you are an introvert, time is actually very good for you right now, because now you can finally get access to jobs that used to be very exclusive for people who were extroverted or could get to the office or could get into a classroom. Everything has been disrupted. So I actually think that we're living in a time that is more inclusive than it used to be just 3 months ago. So I'm actually very optimistic. Of course, we have to fix the whole thing about not trusting, touching, and having sex with people, because we need that, right? People need that. But in a way, I think communities online is going to be the next big, I see the VCs, I'm closing my round in just 3 days, I hope. And I see the money is just flowing into like online communities. We are valued at insanely valuations. Why? Because people are stuck at home and they're lonely. They were not prepared, like you guys were, to build a community around themselves before the pandemic hit them. So I'm a strong believer in online communities. It can never substitute the real life content and contact. But I have decided to make the online experience just almost as good, and to some extent even better than in real life experience.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, and just to get, hat tip to you for playing the role that you've been playing, and I know how much you've been in the trenches for such a long time. So we're part of a community together with the World Economic Forum called the Young Global Leaders, and it's basically the best mafia for good I've ever seen, right? It's like this incredible network of people that have spent a decade traveling all over the world together, that are just ready and primed to now all join the same team. Marnie is going to introduce now Vishal.
Who did we just hear from?
Sloan.
All right, Vishal, are you there?
And let's try and just in terms of, I should have said this earlier, let's just try and, we want this to move into discussion. So like we're gonna call around, but then like let's open this up for more discussion. So kind of shorter, like 1 minute, 2 minute, that kind of thing. Thank you.
Cool.
Wonderful.
Hola, dude. So this is Vishal. He and I met, I think we met, but it was probably virtually because that's the way we've been circulating. But originally in London, we crossed paths. He is all over, bopping between Tulum and Bali and UK, and is building really strong connects between all three, and all within the, I would say, unified planet space, like deeply in it. He's launching Unite.Earth. He's working with a regenerative, climate positive cryptocurrency called Seeds that are between New Zealand and Bali, and is also just awesome hustler wherever he goes, basically. So yeah, I'll let you share your thoughts, Vishal.
Wow, thank you. And so yeah, I'm grateful to be here with you wonderful Earth Angels. And I have a strong background in technology, and I never quite knew what to do with it. You know, I was a contractor in London developing high-scale platforms for some of the guys who I don't think are so good anymore, but you know, literally Unilever, BlackBerry, eventually Bill Gates. And then I was seeking purpose in life. So I came to Mexico for a 2-week holiday, ended up being here for 8 years nearly now. I still travel a lot, and I have a lot of friends around the world. But now I'm more into learning mushroom cultivation with Paul Stamets, learning beautiful bamboo architecture, and being part of the solution that we really need. And I realize more and more people are seeking purpose. And although we have these powerful devices in our pocket, we don't even know our own neighbors. And right now there are so many people around us, and we don't know what they do, how they can fulfill the global goals, and be together. And so that's why we're creating Unite, Unite.Earth. And the whole purpose of that is to bring people together, to curb loneliness, introduce purpose, introduce people to the global goals. And so all of a sudden you'll be able to co-eat, co-work, co-play, and wellness with people, and ideally start to get to know and love your neighbors again, and so much more in the future. And one of the key parts of it is we introduce skill sets, because often we meet people all the time, but we don't know how they can serve the community. And so if we make it easier on your profile for people to show how they want to contribute to their community, it's just going to create an efficient way for us to really achieve the global goals and so much more. And so that's my little minute.
Awesome, Vishal, you're in the right place. Whoa, that's awesome. Yasmin, I'd love to introduce you because I want to just honor the fact you're here and that you might want to go to sleep. Yasmin is calling all the way from Morocco, and is like one of the best like grassroots community organizers I know. She's traveled by Greyhound bus to every state of the US. She's dedicated her life to connecting strangers in community and building friendships and serendipity through it. And she's one of the most authentic weavers and lovers of people that I've ever met. And she's also going to be the first female astronaut on the moon. She's the creator of Voyage. Yasmin, thank you so much for staying up for this.
Oh, thank you so much, Nushin, for that introduction. Yeah, I'm sitting here getting ready to launch to the moon, to space. This is one of my most recent dreams. But yes, I really love the shares. I'm really happy to be here. So you're having dinner, and I'm having what we call suhoor, which now is Ramadan. So we're fasting for 30 days. So I'm eating my meal with all of you before I fast for the day. So that's cool. I mean, it's very clear that communities is what I'm deeply, deeply passionate about, but mostly connecting people across cultural differences, because I believe that there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of stereotypes that exist in the world today. And the more we break down the illusions of separation between countries, age groups, and industries, anything, political views, religious beliefs, that's how we can feel the interconnectedness that our friend was talking about earlier. And it's a beautiful feeling that I believe every human being should experience before they die and after. And so I founded Voyage, as Lucian mentioned, after traveling across 50 states as a young Moroccan ambassador to the US. And my role was to break down stereotypes about the Middle East and you know, Islam and Africa and all those misconceptions. And it really, I guess I was on a journey, but then I realized I don't really know anything. And I feel like every day is just this journey into the unknown. And what keeps me grounded is the connections with people from different perspectives. And truly, that's all what it's about. So my mission is just creating those safe spaces for people to exchange by asking very simple questions. And like, you know, these conversations we're having tonight is a perfect example of a successful community. And that's it, really. And help each other along the way. So thank you for being here, and really an honor to meet all of you.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. Thank you, thank you. I could go on and people could just come into conversation, but just with that invitation, I'm happy to keep calling on people. Damian is here and is someone I'm watching and reading all of your content, Damian, carefully. Damian's he's so many things: a community builder, curator, he throws literally the coolest parties. Runs a company called With Presence, which is Presence is all about creating tools specifically for community creators to create immersive experiences. And so, you know, he is kind of at our collective service, creating some magic there with this platform, and kind of deep student of community and deeply committed. I'm delighted to have you here, Damian. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I thank you. This is wonderful, and I'm really glad being here and being inspired by all the shares and all of it being grounded in community and connection. A lot of my work for the last decade has been in community technology and design. And I would say that where I am right now is, and where I have been for the last 3 years, is in a state of inquiry. And I've been inquiring about what it takes or what it looks like to scale human connection. And how I got to that is I spent about 6 years in San Francisco designing and creating these sort of underground immersive experiences with the intention of bringing people together for connection. And so what I experimented with over in that period was just literally putting the experiences out to the general public and gathering 30 to 50 people in a room who don't know each other, different background, different socioeconomic class, different, you know, skin color, everything, just like creating it and making it as diverse as I can, and experimenting on what it looks like and what it takes to break people's barrier down and bring them into meaningful connection. And what I learned is the tool that is really good at that is art. And so I consistently use art to, whether it be poetry, music, dance, performance, any forms of art, I consistently use that to ultimately allow people to come into connection, find their tribe, find their friends, connect with their investors, et cetera, and so on. However, I was doing that for 50 to 30 people at a time. And I got curious about, well, what does this look like to scale? So what I'm presently doing is converging my background in product design, UI, UX, and all the time working on startups. Converging that with my background in experiential design, and ultimately creating a software platform that gives artists, creators, producers the tools that is necessary for making their experiences sustainable and organizing and operating it so that they can focus on the creative aspect of the experiences. Now, if my assumption is that if we can achieve that, then what ultimately happens is that we start to attract more creators, and more creators will start to create more experiences, and those experiences are going to be diverse, which is really, I believe, the name of the game is to have diversity in the experiences so it can reach a wider audience. So presence is that tool and that platform, and the reason was named presence is because in designing experiences, what I learned is presence is fundamentally the bass note for any good experience. It's there for vulnerability, it's there for compassion, it's there for any state of being requires presence. So that means in order to bring people into connection, presence is required. And so what we advocate for is designing experiences that cultivates presence, therefore bringing people into connection, not just with each other, because connection exists in three areas. It exists in connection to self, connection to each other, and connection to nature. And so when we ask what is our purpose and why we're here, for me, it's simple. It's really the exploration of connecting in those three areas. And so right now, our species, I believe we experience connection. I believe there's a spectrum of connection, and let's say the spectrum is this. Human beings experience this much of it. And so it is my belief that through experiences, we can widen that spectrum, and we can reach more forms of experience of connection. And I believe that art is the tool for doing that. And the reason why experiences is really powerful is because it is like the tool of tools, which means that it can take art, it can take story, it can take technology, it can weave those things together, it can architect and engineer a space for your consciousness to unfold in space and time. And that is a very, very powerful thing to do, which is why we have been seeing the rise of experiential economy.
I can't, Damien, if
Yeah,
you're free.
that's correct. I was gonna wrap there.
Yeah, sure. You wrap.
Yeah, that was where I was gonna wrap.
I'm sorry to jump in like that.
No, it's good.
But yeah, no, I completely agree with you about the experience economy, and I think the notion of the game really is a experiment in like location-based immersive experiences. If we can think about players of the game as like, you know, just from different communities that exist of the past, like what if the Masons, Alcoholics Anonymous, and like Pokemon Go had a baby? You know, it's like that kind of thing. Like how do we do some Burning Man community, like a few different communities having a baby together. But you know, we think of this like Savannah House as a prototype planetary embassy. We think of this as a location-based immersive experience, which we think it's obvious every city should have a planetary embassy. It's just completely obvious and just needs to happen. But then also cities around the world could have these, like the next big multiplayer game should be the game to transform society. So with that said, I see, so we have, who should we go next? Does anyone want to?
I can jump in. Oh wow, women, yes.
Yes.
Women.
Lucian, I mean, I have a few things to say, but I would like to go after Maya Lockwood.
Yeah, so Maya Lockwood is the communications director of IndieBio. She's been a community manager for multiple different communities and been involved in numerous networks that we know and love, Hive, etc. And also in particular has a lot of experience with relating to this topic because Maya is communications director for the fund at IndieBio, which is now approaching $1 billion, and is specifically looking at ways that we can fund communities, which is the whole point of the game. So Maya, so delighted to have you here.
Thank you. So yes, I work for SOSV, which is a fund that invests in deep tech, life sciences, hardware, software, robotics. And essentially the entire vision and portfolio is prepared for this future that we're all looking at, where entire systems have been transformed from food, from in the ways that we all live our lives. And I work in the life sciences sector. So we look at biology as a technology and using the things that are already, the solutions we already have in nature. How can we find more regenerative ways to build technologies? And so my personal mission has always been healing within community. And I think that I've worked with dozens, if not hundreds, of founders and emerging leaders, and I believe that that healing is a big part of that journey. And so while I am the communications director at IndieBio and SOSB, a lot of my work is working with founders on a very deep level in guiding their path toward more self-awareness and healing. But then on a more public facing level, my job is to make science accessible, make bring global awareness to biotech and this new biocentury that we are entering right now. And I believe that science, nature, and spirituality are all connected. And so I work in a variety of ways to not bring that message to the forefront, but to have more of an aligned message for bringing at least science and nature together, so that it's not in opposition. We're not, thinking that we're all on different sides when it comes to science, nature, and spirituality. So that's what I'm doing right now. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you so much, Maya, and thank you for being part of the launch as well. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I got a chance to introduce myself to the Savannah House members earlier, but not so much the other people on the phone. So, and also the people watching on Facebook Live. So my name is Nichol Bradford, and I am fortunate enough to steward the transformative technology community. And what that means is that we really believe that well-being tech, transformative tech, is essential, and well-being is essential for health, work, and human excellence. And so what that means is, if you think about a world that has stress, anxiety, tribalism, bad teams, bad work, low cognition, low emotional fluency, and kind of low humanity, and how would you move to a world where everyone has the mental and emotional well-being that they need for health, for psychological health. They have the social and emotional wellness that they need in order to solve problems together. So that's future communities, future companies, future societies, and that they have the human potential and performance skills that they need in order to discover their purpose and meaning, so that they can actually be their best selves and bring that to humanity. So, we believe that these elements and applying exponential technologies to the inner landscape, that's sort of the radical idea that is not so radical anymore, which is fantastic. But that idea, applying it to the inner landscape, that well-being is actually the right tool or the right element, and well-being technology is actually the right tool to bend the arc of human history towards abundance. And so we have a global community. Our conference last year had over 1,000 people. We're in 72 countries and 450 cities. And we're interested in entrepreneurs, innovators, and investors globally who are interested in building the kind of tech that really actually matters. And so, you know, what we're interested in, there's elements of it that are in biology, lots of AI, every exponential technology you can possibly imagine. But, you know, one of the reasons why I'm on this call is that prior to doing this, I was in video games for 14 years, which included, you know, towards the end, running World of Warcraft China in operations. And so leading operations and go to market for World of Warcraft China, as well as all of the Blizzard properties at that time. And that at that time was the largest stub of the largest game in the world. And being on the back end of digital communities and seeing, you know, the friendships and relationships that you could actually see in the data. Many people are a little, have a bit of a bias on digital relationships and digital communities, but that's also because they don't actually see the data on what it means. And so I'm of the belief that if, you know, that what a relationship is a place where you feel seen, you feel heard, and you feel that you belong and you feel connected. And I'm okay with people having digital relationships that do that for them and physical relationships that do that for them. I think the really most important thing is that we teach people how to have relationships so that wherever they are, they can have a great relationship, whether it's a digital one or a physical one. And so what's interesting about gaming, and one of the very first questions, if you're just joining us now, that Lucian asked was, what's going to happen to communities for the next decade? And one of the things that has come up for me, and I haven't really talked about this a lot publicly yet because it's sort of a new insight, but the very best transformative technologies have humans in the loop in some way or form. So that, you know, I'll explain that more in a little bit. But essentially, you know, the role of communities is that we don't actually change until we change the story about who we are. And so the fundamental thing about a game is that if you take back, you know, if you strip away all the pixels and you go to, you know, any game that you play, digital or physical, games really are about play, community, exploration, challenge, and narrative. And so, you know, what I've also seen in transformation, like people don't stop smoking until they stop seeing themselves as a smoker. Now, there's a lot of things that can help them get over the, you know, the addiction of smoking, but until you change the story, they're always waiting for the moment, right? Now, here's the thing, is that how do we actually truly mark time? We actually mark time in community. Think about everyone here, think about when you went back to your high school reunion and when you realized you changed, or when you saw that ex that was like the most important person in the world and they broke up with you, and then you saw them a few years later and you thought, what was I thinking? And that's how you know you changed. So, or when you go home for Thanksgiving and you see that you're no longer triggered, that's how you know your meditation's working. That's how you know you changed. We actually need other human beings, I believe. We must be witnessed to actually know that we've changed. So we can change, but it doesn't become permanent until we get witnessed. And so I think that's one of the fundamental roles of community. And so one of the things about this game and the world game and the up game and the great game actually is that, you know, if you think about you know, from a technology standpoint, what's happening, you know, we are actually moving towards the metaverse. I don't know, like raise your hands if you saw the Unreal Engine last week. Like if you actually saw it. Amazing. Basically, it looks like film, or it looks like animated film, but it's an engine rendered. The other thing that the company that put it out did, which was very interesting, is they don't charge royalties until you're at $1 million. Basically what they're doing, and a few years ago, the CEO of that company laid out his roadmap for the metaverse in a SIGGRAPH talk. but what they're doing is they're creating the most compelling offer so that the best creators of the world create on that platform. But what that actually means is that all those worlds are technologically compatible, which means that you can move your avatar ultimately from one world to the next, because the standards for the pixels of what a facial animation looks like, or avatar looks like, or basically the rules of the world are going to be the same. And so these things are coming very quickly. And so that's the metaverse. But the challenge with the metaverse, and here's where Upgame comes in, one of the things about the metaverse is most of the time when people are thinking about it, the metaverse ends where the pixels do. Right? Now, there are some things like, you do things in the digital world and it accrues to the real world. And that is coming. And that's really about creators being compensated, which is going to be a big part of these digital worlds. Or one of the things I'm very interested in, which is skills that you accrue in the digital world actually transferring to the real.
Yeah.
To the real world. So that's very interesting. That's another category. But then the other thing is sort of what I call a world game. And a world game is where there is actually no difference between the real, which is this, this is the real, between the real, augmented reality, and the metaverse. And they're actually all the same, and we're the ones who choose what we do in each. And many people, when I start to talk about this, often say, I'm so worried about these digital worlds being so luscious that people won't spend any time in the real. But the fundamental thing is that humans like to be together. We have so many more, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, really, from the very beginning of life till now, where we like to be together, we like to belong, we like to be connected. And so, really what, is, I think, incumbent upon the technology creators of the world, or all of us really, is that if we only will flee the real if we don't teach people how to live in it. Because if we can live in it and have these kinds of connections, if we could all live in Savannah House, people are going to want to be there, and then you use digital for where it's useful. And so what's really interesting about the Upgame, to me, as both someone who makes transformative technology, who works with creators and investors all around the world who make it, and who has a long history in games, especially the really big ones, is that this is like working it out on the human real side, because ultimately these two ends will merge. And so the Upgame is as important as the Unreal Engine, right? Because we're working from both ends together. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm excited about this project and this experiment, because I think thinking through sort of like the game design of how we work together, and how people are incentivized to work together, especially in this post-COVID world, is an absolute worthy use of all of our time. So thank you so much for including me.
You're amazing, Nichol. There's literally, of all the people, anyone in this world that I think of that excites me most to be founding players of this game, you're at the top of that list. So it's I thank you so much for sharing that, and these worlds merging in a way that's like, you could even go as far to say biblical. So Marnie, you want to introduce?
I hope Christy's still there, because
yeah.
she's about to sleep. She's on the other side of the world. Okay, cool.
I'm here.
Awesome. Streaming in from London.
Hey.
So I'll keep it super brief. Christy has been working between the worlds of decentralized communities, accelerator programs, bridging many different worlds actually. And I think most recently we snapped each other in London as you were describing all of the awesome, decentralized hackathon experiments that you are running stateside. So I'll let you quickly share and keep rolling through.
Yeah.
I prefer not to be associated with stateside or United States at all / divided states. That's what I like to call it. But no, I when I am in near the vicinity that's governed by the United States, I am in Puerto Rico. So usually I'm in between Puerto Rico and South Korea. And then recently I'm launching a project in London. So that's that. Excuse me for being a little bit tired. But I'm really on fire for everything that's been said today. And I just think this is brilliant, and I think it's super cool. I'm so thankful to be invited to listen. So yeah, I just my recent, Mahoney met me in a different capacity, and then basically my life has been transformed in the last 30 days. Right now, partly because of quarantine and partly because of just alignment. So for 2020, my goal was happy, healthy house. So this crypto community, I don't know if y'all are involved or not involved, but it can be very, business, and there's some scamminess in it. And it was just very, a little bit, it burned me out. So this year I've decided to really focus on community and focus on my inner well-being and meditation and health, right? So within this spectrum, quarantine happens, and that's when a lot of different facets of my life came together. And I would say for my career, I'm a digital footprint strategist. So that's basically branding and culture. What is your culture online? Analyzing that. And then, so within quarantine, doing, sprinting through different ideas on how to help usher people into wellness and health. We created Give On Live. So Give On Live is a platform, basically a live stream library. So it's gathering live stream creator. I would say it's akin to a Airbnb for live stream creators. So finding ways to support live stream creators, curate meaningful content, and make it easy for everyone to earn fairly. And I think one of the things that inspired me was listening to Jack from Twitter discussing the need for transparent, explainable, and ethical algorithms. So when we have data, when we have resources and content available, how are these data being recommended to users? And we had the whole Cambridge Analytica situation, and one of my good friends was involved with that, but she was just performing a function. She was doing her job and doing it brilliantly, and then it just exploded into this manipulative situation. And that's something we really have to think about, because data is the next oil, right? Or is the now oil. That's a reality. So to all these social media platforms, what are they leading our children, our peers, our friends into? And what we want to do with Give On Live is we want to make it very clear that the algorithm that we're building, and we have data scientists on this research right now, is value driven and not profit driven. And that we are, and it was interesting you guys mentioned the Maslow hierarchy of needs, because we're evaluating that as well. And we are basically, we split in our data science research, we're splitting up, especially with this quarantine situation, we're splitting up content into 7 clusters, very akin to these hierarchy of needs. So movement and faith and love and laughter and all these basically human needs. And again, now kind of putting in the thing that Nichol, I believe, was just mentioning about game, we're adding that feature in and thinking about basically what would it look like. And because I had a client that was a telemedicine app, and that inspired me. I'm like, wow, what if they have this biometrics for your body, your weight, and all that. I'm like, wow, what would it look like if we had a game where we had your biometrics for your needs, And so we basically encourage you to balance out, how much content, whether it's live stream or podcast or different streaming options, how can you encourage people to balance out what they're watching, right? So there you have a kid, you know, in Japan, and he's only watching anime, and that's all he watches. But what if we incentivize him, and what if we connect him to a kid in Germany who also loves anime, but the German kid is a little bit more balanced and also watches musical something, you know? So it's really interesting. And I just think, yeah, we're working on it right now. Now we're kind of building on a proof of concept, and we're building the app. It's going to be launched in July. But I'm really excited to just continue this conversation. It seems like everyone that spoke today is doing some form of, you know, outreach in this kind of situation. And for me especially, I think I'm just really happy that, you know, so for example, I kind of correlate, you know, what Corona did for germaphobes, you know, Corona also did for, in the sense that, like, finally, like, people who have kind of OCD germophobic kind of tendencies, that's the way to do things now, you know, like, cool, you know, so kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, the way that happened, Corona also made it okay to talk about mental health issues and depression inside the house and being quarantined. Like, now we can talk about that stuff, right? So I think that's a prime opportunity, because my heart has been hurting for these Japanese kids who live inside their rooms, and the high rate of depression and suicide in Japan and in Asia at large. You know, my heart has been hurting for that for a while. And I'm glad that now this is not something that's taboo for me to talk about. I can say suicide while I'm pitching my project, you know? So it's a mental health solution. It's basically kind of just transforming the way we leverage technology for good. So yeah, that's what I'm working on.
So much. You are on fire, despite it being like 3, 4 a.m.
Yeah, I know. But it's so valuable to meet all of you with your cool hats and your delicious food. I feel like
we're delighted to have you here, and feel free to get some sleep if you would like. Or you're
please,
welcome.
I really would like to. But I want to meet all you guys over live stream. Let's have more parties.
Okay. Well, we're gonna follow up, and we're gonna send a follow-up invitation from the 1st of June to start the game. Okay. So it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun. So we'll follow up on that front.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then Brian.
Yeah, is Auntie Ivy there?
Yes, hi, love.
Hey, Auntie Ivy. So I was recently connected with Auntie Ivy and was so inspired by what she's doing in terms of really creating a community of the earth and bringing humans together all around the world through our shared connection to this planet and the ancestry of which we all come from, and holding a lot of codes of cross-cultural indigenous sort of wisdom that she's bringing into community experiences, and is hosting a number of different gatherings this year, and a lot of visionary festivals that she's starting to put together with different artists, and she's up to a lot of great things. I think she can tell us more about it. Thank you for being here with us. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Firstly, thank you for putting this on and all the hard work behind the scenes. A lot of unseen stuff doesn't get thanked. So I was going to say tēnā koe from Aotearoa, New Zealand, Nisi Bulavanaka from Fiji, Turufalava, Samoa, Yahweh here in Australia where I am, and greetings. So I've just been feeling into why we're here, and I'm going to try and do a whole timeline in a few minutes because I know there's other speakers. And I'm going to be talking from a First Nations cultural perspective, and someone was saying how the triangle gets flipped up. We are opposite to a lot of ways of working, and I was trained as a little girl, and some of us are chosen, and how do I put it? What's happening now, we were told and in story time since we were little, and this message that's been etched on my face that I walk with is a message for the world of what's happening today in 2020. And when we talk about solutions, the solutions have always been there for generations, and a lot of our people have been trying to put that out there to the world, but because of us being silenced and the lack of resources, our ways haven't been able to be shared with community. And community to us is a person, a people. Community is nature, the elements. And so it's a whole being of one source. There's no matter. It's just one whole energy of everything that gives life. And hearing all of these amazing people, it's like, wow, this meeting was already planned a long time ago, because my personal walk took place. I had to be patient till I became a grandmother, rites of passage, in 2017. And I've got 3 grandchildren now. But what that did was it threw me across the other side of the world in 2017. And my job then was to observe what was going on. 2018, I went back to water those seeds that I planted in prayer in different parts of Mother Earth on my self-funded walk, to water those seeds of my teachings, and to go back in 2019 and have a look at the results through speaking and putting those in action. And 2020 is where I had to wait for this, what we call a 500-year prophecy of the rebirth, which we just went through. This beautiful reset, a blessing in disguise, struggles, consequences, but also celebrations of people resting to go within, to have a look at what is important. And I was taking my campaign across the waters, which just got a bit of a pause, which allowed me to work on it a bit better, is a campaign of what everyone's just talked about, which is, I had tears in my eyes thinking, wow, all of you next leaders are the community of the change makers of tomorrow. And I looked at it from a holistic view of one sweep of a solution, which I was trained as a little girl, and as I grew older and now a grandmother, to sit and see what I see as a solution. And I've got a documentary to bring education, to wake up people that through history of what people don't know about history. How can people heal, or how can people work from heart if they don't even know the history of their homeland? So there's a documentary, there's an ongoing exhibition that I want to kick off, an exhibition of people giving from hearts through creative arts, so people can bring their messages through creative arts, so it can wake up everyone with that ongoing awareness and message of look after what gives us life. An app, a wisdom app, where our elders carry the solutions and answers, and a lot of our elders, precious elders, are leaving, and some have already left. So it's to create an app so we have those elders. People talk about VR, virtual reality. This is AR, actual reality, where we've still got enough elders here where we can see them like this. And before technology changes so fast, we want to be able to have this app of elders that are still here with us, so our younger generation can see and speak to them like this. And again, people are talking about a game. There's a game that I was showing. I'm like a bridger from the ancestors, incoming job descriptions for us here on Earth, and an app that is going to heal that broken down structure of family values, that gap of passage of rights, where a lot of our younger generation might not have the supports to go through a safe walk of life. So this app, through a game worldwide, can create community coming together, and you can go and learn how to become a young man and learn the basics of growing up to go through a passage of rites to build a fire, to then understand the importance of building a house and how to work with other people all over the world. And someone might teach them how to build a fire. Someone might teach someone how to build a stronger house through nature, but it's nothing. It's all positive. It's all working together instead of all these games. My grandchildren are in a world of all games that are killing, violent, aggressive, and it's just like, whoa. So I have a lot of solutions that have been there for a long time, also from who are watching us above, but it's that old story of our people not having the resources to put this in place. So this is a beautiful blessing to be here and to hear what's happening out there. So thank you for this time, and thank you for the hard work out there. Bless.
Auntie Ivy, wow, thank you, Aho. And thank you so much for bringing in the ancient future here. We're big believers in bringing ritual and rites of passage here. When we kick off the game, one thing I know for certain is we're going to have a channel on rites of passage and rituals around communities, and looking at how the Unified Planet Community Alliance could partner with communities all around the world to introduce new rituals and like study rituals and understand what creates the greatest stickiness, and like how can we bring in things like the Eleusinian mysteries and rituals that have been practiced for thousands of years. So thank you so much for being with us and all the way from Australia. Yeah, well, what we wanted to do now, Maren is with us. And Maren, if you could introduce Adrian as well, but Maren is a very dear friend. I shared a Burning Man RV with her. She's been part of the Up Game from the beginning. And she leads community at ICV, which is basically a community investment bank charged with moving a shitload of money into communities and community projects. And so, Maren, maybe let's just try and like go super interesting content. I don't want to cut anyone off, so if people can try and go, just so we get a little bit of discussion time, that would be super, super appreciated. And Maren, love to hear your thoughts on community for the next decade.
Wow. Thank you, Lucian. And thank you, Sue. I was just really moved by everything that you said. And it's really from the standpoint of community, just I loved what you were saying about being a bridge between ancestors and healing family values. And that's really with ICV, we're really all of us are really aligned with being bridges between communities, and specifically how can we be bridges between communities of wealth and in Indigenous communities who have been just treated poorly, like really poorly. So we have a fund specifically for that. We have part of our business model is with catalytic philanthropy funds, which are designed specifically to eradicate these global challenges that have been systemic and ongoing for a really long time. And what's part of our mission is to fund the with our impact investment side to fund the innovations that are moving us forward as humans and as earthlings, with humans, earthlings, planet, everything. And then also with 10% going back to the catalytic philanthropies, to the nonprofits that are really doing the good work, like on the ground. And to specifically, we care deeply about Indigenous communities, about underserved communities, about systemic just planet challenges, the Amazon, like all of these, how can we develop community together and really do it with everyone's voices represented and everyone's voices heard. And so it's just really, it's my deep honor to be here with you all and to listen. and to be a rainbow bridge between communities in service to us as earthlings and to our planet. And I just really, it's my deep honor and joy to be with you all. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's just very kindly invited Adrian on us. Would love you to introduce Adrian. We're delighted you're here.
Adrian's amazing. I'm so delighted that he's here and he showed up. He's bridging communities and also across the world and specifically in VR. So, and Adrian can elaborate, but I'm so delighted that you're here. Yes. So awesome. Yay.
Well, thank you. Love back.
Thank
you very much. It's a really honor to be here. Well, I'm from Mexico. I met Maureen last year, and it's been an amazing journey this year to know each other and to share light and hope. That's what, and love, of course, that's what moves everything at the end. So, well, a quick introduction to myself. I started in communications, so that's my core. And also, this brings other things like connections and ideas and points of view. And at some point, I realized that there are no efficient ways to do this. And as normally we learn this at home or in the school, but at the end, when we share in a massive way, we have news and everything, it gets out of control. Too much information, too many things to know and to learn. So I developed a methodology of transversal communication, and this brought me to new technologies, XR in virtual reality, augmented reality here in Mexico. So in that way, I just want to point out that for me, technology was secondary. It was not the core. My core is always communication, and it's always the way how we solve human situations that we have. So in that way, I put the technology, and it created this also media perspective of things, how you transform a single narrative, a single message into different ways of communicating. Either it's TV or either it's music, art, or now new technologies, but the core is the same. It's always the same. And I have the chance to create a documentary on Marietta's Islands in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. And it was amazing because I had a special permission to access a place that nobody can access. It's restricted for humans to go there. So I was able to bring this camera and film everything and create an experience that could translate something that is not available for humans, but it's rich for the soul. So when you really appreciate nature, all the birds around, you really nourish your inner self. And that's for me is really interesting and really important to focus how we can nourish each other's with technology. Even here in Mexico, we have deep culture in native communities. And I was really motivated to show their own culture, but not only for people outside. It's amazing that people from Europe, for United States, or any country can see the Mexican culture. That's good. But I try to turn that into how these new generations, and trying to talk about the post-COVID, is how new generations of these cultures will know what is happening. These cultures are being lost. Their traditions, their dances and their paintings, everything is getting lost. This normal tradition of telling your son how to do something is being lost. So I find this way to create a memory bank that can show these cultures what they are, to have a mirror so they can in the future know what are the bases. So this aligned with nature is something that I consider really interesting. And right now, I also work for Guanajuato International Film Festival. I am the director and curator of the XR section. So this helps me a lot to create community towards these new technologies, this new content. In fact, I met Marine in EarthX in Dallas because I'm looking always for content that has impact. Of course, there's entertainment content, but impact content has something different to show, to put you in the center of the story and to create this link between the person that is watching and the real people that is there. And transmedia helps a lot with that. These location-based solutions that you're mentioning, it's an amazing way to do it because you create a community around the media. And well, we are doing in Mexico those kind of projects. Right now we are working in C19 project. That is a project that will catch everything that is happening in Mexico in VR. There's a brother of this project that was S19 with S, and that was about the earthquake that happened in Mexico in 2017. So the director of this project, that is a friend of mine, Alan, is moving into this C19 project, and it's just amazing how the model is the same, to show people what to do in certain cases that they don't have the tools or the knowledge. And in Mexico, it's very important to really empower people so they know you can only break fear when you know something. So basically that's what we are doing. And also we're working on other impact projects in nature, and it's been like this, but right now we are focused on this.
You are
Thank you.
clearly epic. Marin, thank you for inviting Adrian. Adrian, great work time capsuling culture like that. Amazing.
Certainly.
And what a macro to the macro, right? So Maya's with us. Maya,
yes. Thank you.
You've
I'm
spoken
here.
a little bit, but I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, and thank you, Adrian. I actually just wrote you a private note. I used to run transmedia stuff here in San Francisco, so I was kind of earlier on in the creating the metasphere of narrative and where storytelling meets technology. And I can post my LinkedIn and people can find more about me because I do a lot of things, but
Don't worry.
yeah.
You're going to know each other very well.
I love seeing the two of you on the screen right now, right next to each other. It's just beautiful.
Love you, Marin. One of the things, I mean, I've been listening and hearing, and it's like my work has been everything. It's very meta. I've worked in film, gaming, transmedia. I've worked in clean tech. I've worked in just leadership and working in organizations. I'm actually working with the World Economic Forum right now, as well as a side project. I work with the IEEE Ethical Aligned Design for Ethics in AI and bring in how do we actually develop standards of ethics when we're developing these technologies in that conversation. My background behind me, not my history, is a possibility of where we can go and where we can go in cities. And my interest is how do we transform our communities, our cities, our people to be more regenerative. And to prototype that idea, I've written the book 1 of 3 books called M's Theory. We create our own reality. And the idea behind it is it's a collective that moves us forward. And the collective is international. And the collective is intersectional. And the collective all has mentors of ancient grandmothers talking through Dreamtime to all of these different younger people in the future. Because without our grandmothers, and especially our grandmothers, but also our grandfathers, without our grandmothers, we're not moving forward. So if we don't connect ancient traditions, and I come from I come from a middle tradition. I'm Jewish and was born in Israel, and I call it a middle tradition because it's not European tradition and it's not specific indigenous. It's something else. It's very unique and troubled, and because of its history. So it's literally and no wonder that a lot of Jews find themselves being in places of what we call tikkun olam, the world repair, because we have been uprooted from our own ancient place, and then we came back and it wasn't what it was before. Something wasn't right because we weren't right. The whole world changed, and the whole narrative of where our place was and how do we belong to that place that we came from transition. So I think we are kind of the in-between people who come and connect, and no wonder that Jews have been the biggest people in Hollywood, like talk about creating a narrative on the world. There's reasons and there's archetypes, and we've been that archetype of the storyteller and the wanderer, the person that goes in between the worlds for humanity on a very deep level. So yeah, my side work is narrative, and in these times, what I've seen is collectives. And I'm not the only one who's been writing about the collectives for a very long time. There's also a wonderful San Francisco writer called Rebecca Solnit, and I don't know how many books she's got. She's got like 30 books, or 40 books, but she actually wrote a book called The Paradise Built in Hell, which is a book that was written after Katrina, where the mainstream narrative was everybody's with guns and everybody's fighting, and it's apocalypse, but the true reality on the ground that people were helping each other and people were feeding each other and people were taking care of each other. And my work with narrative and the collective journey, which is another piece of my work, and the regenerative narrative, points to our ancient pre-human ancestry of we come from collectives. We never worked well by ourselves. So for us to play this new game, we just have to play the old game. It's ancient, got it in our DNA. It's global, or maybe planetary, because we don't want to use the word global. It's planetary, and we all are part of this planet. But the kind of younger brothers and sisters have forgot that we belong to this planet. And I believe that a lot of our mental health issues come from forgetting that we belong to each other, forgetting that we belong to our planet. And we have our older brothers and sisters who are people whose ancestry hasn't been broken, their chain hasn't been broken, who are here to tell us and remind us that we belong to each other and we belong to the planet, and honor the places that we are. If we're guests and new to the places, bring in deeper honor, bring in deeper ways of treating the land, learn and ask questions and be humble. So a lot of my conversations has been around that, and that's also my kind of personal practice of my biggest teachers are, the trees, the redwoods. I live in Northern California, the redwoods here, the whales, growing a sweet little rooftop garden in the middle of a city and just looking at seeds and growing seeds. There's so much we can do to play this game on a deeper level. And it's not about just the technology of well-being. It's really the basics of rock is hard, water is wet, remembering what is the complete human truth and complete planetary truth that is really simple. I think we're complicating way too much. Yeah. And I love it because I love complicating as well. And I'm and I'm a technologist, but the real truth is so simple. And even if you look at there were 4 elements coming out of the Big Bang, and we're made out of those, everything we know. So we're actually deep down really, really simple, but we kind of decided to kind of overcomplicate things in this body, in this time, in this life. And I think community, and I think what you're doing there, Lucian, and what we're doing together, like we're basically, I mean, think about it, for some of us, this is here in San Francisco, it's 8:40. We're sitting after dinner telling stories around the fire. It's the ancient technology. We're back to the same thing. We've done all of this technology, all of this evolution, all of this like work and wars and all that to find ourselves back in the same place.
Yeah, we're all walking each other home. Totally.
Exactly.
The horseshoe lesson keeps coming around.
Yeah.
Maya, thank you so much. It's just such a delight every time to hear you speak of these things. Thank you for bringing in your deep heritage in this as well. Like, really, really beautiful things. And amazing work you're doing. We just want to, so we want to go around the table here. There's a couple more people. Let's just try and do a little shorter, as brilliant as this is. Pablo, I'd love to call on you. Pablo's coming in, he's a dear brother, coming in from Costa Rica. Serendipitously saw the Facebook live stream and is an amazing community builder, runs an organization called Ideas in Action. Organizes TEDx's, great convener in Davos. We shared an apartment in Davos this year, and we run into each other. It's like many others here. Whenever we see each other, we're like, this intelligence that is working, this kind of human imaginal cells that are working right now. I have such trust where I know wherever Pablo is, I am, and we are. And it's that kind of conversation that we have together. Pablo, awesome to have you here.
So yeah, so very quick, just on that. So actually, I'm going on Sunday to spend 2 weeks at Alegria Village with Stephen Brooks, and then I'm going to Nosara, where I'm moving full time to actually live there.
We had Cara and Stephen Brooks in our food game. And
Great.
Both of them are leading different tracks right now, one on the food genome and another one on food justice.
Great. So so that's one, I'm working with a good friend. We used to do these convenings on like a farm to table. Maybe we've met Ed Seidlman, and we're actually looking at some of the micro housing on top of the permaculture way of living and thriving zones. And with Michael Sean, and then I'm going with Deva, Premal, and Mitten, who just got stuck in their lockdown in Costa Rica. And part of what I've been thinking and been working the last 2 months, been doing some response to COVID in Costa Rica. Like the president is actually a YGL 2019. So it's we've managed to keep at 10 people. The death, that's 10 too many, but it really did show that a lot of the investments in community and trust were a very, very big part of the response. So with Michael Sean, I'm working on looking at visions 110,000 years into the future. Because I feel like it would be a pity that we get about thinking too small out of a too limited time frame, without taking the urgency. I'm thinking a lot about like infinite games. And so I liked a lot that I accidentally jumped into this completely, like not even planning. I had been talking to Marin and then to some other of the people here, our connectors like Sulaiman, not just regenerative ways of investing for family offices and next gen, that's already like a little further out, but I've been thinking how to be ancestors very far out. And for that, I'm working on a framework of infinite games to model on different values and archetypes so people can experience what it would feel like to work from trustworthy systems and infinite game structure. So very, very unlike, I think how it feels to play Monopoly or Risk, where it's really boring because the last hours, it's just like the two people taking everything from each other of the limited things in the game. Every move should expand it. So we're looking at mapping how these long-term future visions and futures in plural in a game-like dynamic can also be seen in a couple of thriving zones where you see the future already happening to a certain extent. So that's exciting me a lot. I think I'm very passionate, like Marion, to work with next gen sort of transition ways of thinking of wealth for actors such as family offices. But the thing that I love, exactly as Lucian was saying, is there is a bigger intelligence distributed. I sometimes feel like I would like to be more of the time with more of the people that I love. Every time I try to talk to Marion, we're in a Nexus meeting but I've gotten since last year the opposite feeling. like this intelligence is operating in a distributed way, will like come together. And that, to me, to conclude, the thing I've been thinking the most is how to have deep trust in like in a Jungian way, in a way that's very integrated and whole. So like that the trust is not just in okay, this person is good at finance and that person is good at networking. It's like the full integration of the shadows and the dreams and the aspirations can be brought in. And that's where I think media and games, and then a grounded part of the earth and the actual seeing like nature do its beautiful kind of growth, like with Steve Brooks, is where I'm attuning to. And that's why I'm physically moving to this blue zone in Nosara. So you're all welcome to come visit around here in Costa Rica.
Pablo, I love this so much. So good to have you here. And just like, I mean, a couple of points I think is good to share on this, that around next gen, because when it comes to funding communities, I'm pretty convinced that one of the major strategies is next gen families.
Yes.
In fact, we're currently at a, just to share these stats, because I think they're relevant to this topic as we go into the game. There's currently $60 trillion transitioning from one generation to the next, which is the largest wealth transfer ever in the history of the planet.
Yeah, this decade, is it?
Yeah, 70% is going into the hands of women. By 2030, 2/3 of wealth will sit in the hands of women. So there's some major issues happening here as this $70 trillion between now and 2052 transitions to the next generation. The statistics, the research shows that most of those women will fire their financial advisors, and most of those women, like I think it's like 79%, will make the _1 decision of their investment strategy based on like environmental and social factors, fundamentally opposed to the current generation investment strategy. So there's some major good news here in terms of generational wealth transfer that's going to be funding new systems. I come from one of those families, and I know that this isn't just what's right, it's also this kind of like storyline that goes beyond the present moment. But thank you, Pablo. Let's just do, we want to go around the table here. Seth is here, Seth Bunting's here. We're always great to have you, Seth. Natalia's here.
I would love to offer some entertainment, like a break.
Please,
are you guys open
yeah.
to that? Awesome. Let's have fun, because I'm like, oh my God, what I'm going to add to this? What I'm going to, like, what? Oh my God, this is way too overwhelming, you guys. Way too overwhelming. Like, beyond my like understanding of how it's overwhelming that I'm like let out of this. Like I'm probably going to be too much for this anyway. So let's have fun. I want to comment on every single thing that I see on each of these boxes, and also I'm live streaming it on. Okay, and of course this quantum moment of live streaming has paused during these. Yeah, I'm commenting on every single thing that I'm seeing, the merch that you guys are showing off, because I'm your fashion girl, gonna advise the way into the greatest, most biggest trade of our times, that is so synchronistic, that is so beautiful, that is unfolding right now. My background is in fashion tech, sustainability, and all of these circle creations jumping in between the worlds of storytelling. And yeah, I just want to like storytell and just like narrate and curate, you know, that kind of thing. Go a little bit like fashion aesthetics on you. So okay, let me just like spotlight for me. Oh, I can't do that. Yes, I can. So I'm spotlighting for the streaming of this. I'm looking at the Up Game screen right now, and there's a lot of information. Come on, I see beautiful people, smiles, energies all together, this big fractal unfolded there, and just like seeing so many people in the same room in such high frequency is such an inspiration. Deep, deep inspiration and joy to see your smiles and emotions real, represented. And I love the colors and the patterns. It just gives me a lot of like, oh, yes, there's like the whole world, and you're living it and you're creating it and sharing it with so many people. So thank you. Okay, let me go for next merch. Let's do Pablo. Pablo, hi. I'm seeing right away notice the guitar, or like the small guitar, I think it is, right? The ukulele, or I don't know what kind of instrument this is, but it's a beautiful.
It's a ukulele.
Ukulele, yeah, and then it gives me a lot of information about you. Would you be able to maybe play while I talk?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then Marin is next. Okay, Marin? Okay, Marin and I, I recorded her topless speaking at Burning Man at the Quantum Theater that Lucien created. So
it was see-through. It was there.
It
was
was
there.
It was so
it was sheer.
beautiful. Marin is the aesthetic holder of the truth of the feminine, and thank you so much for again quantumizing for us to be ourselves as human beings. Like, I haven't shaved my legs since the lockdown happened, so I'm like exploring that personality, and being let go from the groups. So it's great to be a woman these days. Like, great gratitude, Marin. Thank you. All right, let's go further in the line. Gregory. Okay, oh my God, Gregory's in New York, so I'm already like, okay, can we are you in an open relationship? I know you have you have a fiance, but like, are you open to considering?
I'm also gay, unfortunately.
I do massage. The touch deprived thing is a thing. Yes. So like city life and getting to know highly conscious type A individuals like myself in there, it's just wow. Yes, we can really co-create something special here if we see each other in physical, now that we know that this is so easy to meet in such synchronicity. And now Adrian, oh my God, this guy is so cute. I can't. I mean, I'm sorry. I just have to be like, no, this is too cute to be true, Adrian. And yes, thank you for your smile. It's a beautiful smile.
Thank you.
Okay, Sue. Oh my God, this is it. This is what I'm talking about, the communication. It's a communication. That's a true communication. You don't need to say words, but then when you say words, oh my, that's impossible not to shut up.
Natalia, we love this. We want to try and close on time, and we want to make sure everyone's.
I'm experimenting.
We love you.
Absolutely.
We love you.
Thank you.
Keep going. But let's give your synthesis.
Amazing, thank you. Synthesis is the fact that we're all so special and we are so seen. And no matter what kind of background we have, no matter what kind of education, no matter what kind of friends we have, we're here for a reason. And united, not by our accomplishments, but by who we truly are here. And not by the way that we look, because the looks are these tribal markers of the who we are. So gratitude to this, and unification of communications is the theme in my life. How do we create a common language? And that common language doesn't need to be verbal. It can be listening to the silence and looking in each other's eyes. And the next level is the communication of the inner technology and utilizing our hearts and third eyes to start really communicating from that space, imagining what it feels like. Thank you
so much, Natalia. That was awesome. You're going to be so much fun to play the game with.
Thank
you.
Hey
guys, I just want to jump in because I'm going to have to leave. I've actually got a back-to-back Zoom, but Spirit's been coming right through like a big flame, and sort of takes 30 seconds to bring in, while we had that intermission, of the word a reality check. And just listening through everything, it's amazing. But I just want to put in there too, just putting the word time. I'm on the Mother Earth Indigenous Nations Forum of Elders, and I just want to bring in a lot of truth and reality of what's happening in the world, and just hearing abundance of ideas and money and wealth, and just there's a lot of fast tracking of stuff behind the scenes that we need to think about. And if we don't actually put solutions in place for that, a lot of this won't matter. Meaning there's a lot of stuff that are happening in Ecuador, in Amazon, and all over that. I'm on councils, and if we're talking future, the future is right now, and if we don't try and put some solutions in place of the unseen stuff, because we're living it and we're trying to survive, that affects all of us. We live on the one Mother Earth, and so I just want to put that reality check in there, that I hope we can, I've got to get off the Zoom, but if people are really interested in what's happening behind the scenes that affects us and needs to be fast-tracked solutions, it's actually saving our world right now. So I just want to put that in place.
Totally, yeah, thank you.
So, blessings, love you all. I've got to go on a global Zoom now. And just to remind everyone there's a lot of work behind the scenes of putting some new governance to help us with 5G and all of that. So we're putting some big things in place, but that's why I've got to go. So blessings. And
thank you,
hope to talk to
so
you,
much.
Marianne.
And our intention is to invite Lynn Twist to the game and look at how we can bring in Pachamama Alliance with that in Ecuador, and other solutions that you've got. We're all about action. So
yeah, there's a lot happening now where lives are getting taken, and we all drink the same water, and like if a little bit of that wealth can be put into our wealth of life, we can save actually ourselves right now. So blessings.
Being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Greg, Greg, I want to introduce you. We've got Greg, Tim, Seth is with us, and then we'll wrap up with something magic from Savannah House. Don't know what we'll end up with. Follow up the rare.
Yeah, thanks. It's been such a pleasure to listen in on this. Lucian and I actually were on a call, I think 2 nights ago, or maybe it was yesterday, I can't remember. We're considering working in this format in a couple of other spheres, and so I'm here kind of listening in to see where we're going to go with community, and almost wanting to go for this ride with you guys too. I'm working in the psychedelic community. Some folks heard me say before, in the hour before the call, come out of the healthcare world, and I think about health in the most holistic ways. And I'm really working with leaders in the psychedelic community to make sure that we don't bring those medicines into the world in a siloed fashion, because that would be the biggest shame that could happen, in my opinion, is if we looked at them as like, here's the solution, and then didn't really think about, how are we addressing all of the other needs of that human being that we're working with. And that's where we need to be thinking about the role of community. And so really, when I'm thinking about bringing these medicines into the world, how are we making sure that the sites of care are deeply embedded with other, community players? And how do we make sure that those sites of care are actually taking an active role in engaging with community and serving as a place that can actually start to be an anchor in restoring the social fabric of the places where we're offering this care? And so that's what I'm embarking on in the work that we're doing with the community and supporting those folks that are doing the work. I'm a healthcare strategy BD guy, and all I know how to do is build the businesses, but I'm so grateful and so humbled to be able to be of service to the incredible people that are actually trained to offer that healing. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm just, the last thing I'll say, the weaving that I am constantly doing and the bridge building that I'm doing from the psychedelic community into the healthcare system is also constantly looking for places to connect. So like every single one of you this evening, I'm like, how could I work with these people? How can we like connect with this? And so it's just been such a delight to be with all of you this evening. So thanks.
Thanks so much, Greg. So delighted. We actually started New Year together, this golden decade, at a gathering with a dear brother, Ian Michael, with Holos in Guatemala, in Lake Atitlan, on redesigning civilization, reimagining civilization. Right,
yeah, the emerging, yeah.
The emerging new civilization. Greg, thank you for being, I know it's late for you there. Tim and Seth, would love to introduce you guys. I'm going to keep introductions to your name.
Hi.
Hey, Tim. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here. This has been really fun. So I'm Tim Archer. I'm a systems thinker and deep generalist, and my background's from organizational behavior to decision science, emerging tech, distributed technology, crypto economy, and governance systems. I think that the situation that we're in right now, it almost feels like it's kind of this like pause where like if we were bees and we'd been all put to sleep for a minute, where we're all kind of just staying inside of our hive, where like after this, I think that we're going to see a swarm where there's like going to be a drastic reconfiguration of where people are and how we coordinate. So we kind of like need this moment of pause to configure into new communities and kind of wayfind the way that we'd like to live. And I also see that there's going to be a lot of migration that happens and a new chance for innovative communities to prototype new futures. I also think that transforming from like the current conditioned relationship structures and into more community structures is almost going to be a necessity as a part of this. And that's going to be like really key to the cultural transformation, because when you change your relationships, you change the culture that conditions your behavior, and then that forms new habits. So to be able to change that narrative, I think that what Nichol said was really apt. And there's also a kind of deliberateness to that in how we sense make and how we chase make and how that builds narrative. And those processes really convene with that. I'm going to be doing a little presentation on the art of transversal change making at the Unit Unconference on the 29th. I'll post a link to that, and I'll be talking about that. But I also think design at a community level is kind of the key here, so that we can figure out how to focus on resilience. I'm also working on kind of a new mutualist aid-based economy with mutual aid solidarity food systems, which is another great project that's bringing together a lot of thinkers within the food system space locally to look at how we solve this problem in one region, and then figure out how to transmit those best practices across to other regions and start to build a model that works in a lot of places. Also, just rebuilding the commons, I think, is another aspect of this, and collaborative cities are going to be key in that. That's mean new infrastructure that matches what those cities actually need to do, and that's going to take participatory democracy as a design process. So that's what I'm working on right now, and also send a link to my project there, but that's basically dashboarding and indexing models of these systemic root problems, and then engaging in collaborative design of networks and systems meta design together.
Well, one thing, Tim, is the whole design of the game is actually based on kind of our intention is that like liquid democracy can come forth through this network of alliances and guilds. So we'd love to, when hopefully you can play the community game and bring some of that wisdom in. Sorry to cut the tail end short here. Seth, would love you to introduce yourself before we wrap up from our side.
Happy to. I'm gonna step out of the room here. We're in it's been I don't know if anybody else has been feeling it. Maybe you guys chatted about it before I got on the call, but it has been a really beautiful but like almost ceremonial week. I mean, just like deep purges and crying from our entire crew here in a really beautiful way. Just a lot of cleaning. And I have been, as I talk to more and more friends, it seems like something's just like externally moving through, and I'm grateful. And thank you for all sharing in the ways that you have. Just a lot of synergy, a lot of really beautiful concepts and ideas, and some stuff that's in motion, seemingly in a really beautiful way. I am calling in, some of you know, I'm calling in from Topanga, California, from Camp Wildwood, which I'm running this project, this beautiful project right now, which is kind of a next stage of what Dow House was prior to Savannah, which is, we're essentially kind of running almost like an innovation studio, really focused on forward facing, it's experiential stuff, but we're really focused on a lot of what we talk about here, which is human behavior stuff. And where that gets into is kind of the field of design that I'm most passionate about, which is ontological, really looking at our human behaviors inside of technology, inside of physical space, and inside of kind of our psychosocial space. And so, Tim, thanks for kind of presencing a lot of the behavioral stuff that I think is critically important. I'm really excited to. I need a walkthrough of the up game from somebody, so maybe that's a next week kind of thing. Somebody can kind of hold my hand and just take me through, because we're on a way on standing something up that I think is going to be beneficial, not only for kind of communities in close proximity to us, but maybe in the early iterations may be able to help ship models out to more problem points around the world that we're seeing right now. And the big focus for us right now is around commercial real estate. So there is a massive collapse in commercial real estate that's happening currently. I'm fortunate enough to sit in a petri dish of a commercial real estate owner that not only owns Topanga, but 700 acres in upstate New York and 600 in Costa Rica, and has 4 collapsing hotels in New York and 6 apartment buildings where nobody can pay rent. And
Seth, I think you're covering your mic.
Can we not hear?
You just went a little quiet.
You guys can hear okay?
Are you covering your mic, or is there something changed?
I can't hear you.
Your sound just went quiet a little bit.
I think it just fell. I think it just unzoomed.
Seth?
He just
okay. While we're waiting, Seth will come back because this is some really key pieces he's holding here, and while the Wildwood is, like we're seeing this kind of alliance emerge of different physical community kind of oases and places of experimentation. But I wanted to hear from Mani, who has got a long background in community management in all sorts of different projects, often in the crypto space and blockchain space, and for you to introduce your thoughts. Community in the next 10 years.
Oh. Man, yeah, hey everyone. I've just been actually trying to kind of like collectively map the thoughts from all of you guys, and it's been awesome actually to see the synergies, and I'm like going, oh yeah, this goes right back to this initial comment, so it's incredible to witness the alignment and to be making sure that this is like a real globally cross-pollinated perspective share, because I've been trying as hard as I can to get all corners of the global consciousness kind of represented, and who I've been talking to and connecting with on the community front, and there's just such convergence, it's insane. And I'm like every day there's another person doing another project that sounds exactly like what X is onto. And so I love what Tim just surfaced there about, like, this is the pause and then there's going to be like this bzzz hive of the bees coming out and cross-pollinating like a mofo, and so to project, oh my gosh. And I also love what Auntie Ivy, yes, so much mana with her, and I wonder what iwi and hapu she is affiliated with in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Anyway, that's another track, but that is actually really core to all of this, is the Indigenous community knowledge that is like underpinning so much of the ancient umbilical cord to now to the future. And so yeah, what have we seen in the next 10 years? The rehiving of it, to draw this bee metaphor further down the line, like the rehiving, and I think it's going to be fundamentally different how we exist. And the very first point that we, Savannah, are in the super minority and super lucky, and like we're some kind of extreme fringe case, like that is fundamentally going to change. That's going to be a core element to it, and having a cross-generational, multicultural, multi-dimensional, experiential element to that, and pulling that all together. But wow, we could just go on. I'm sorry, I'm gonna pull us
This is
in.
awesome, man.
I'm
You go
also
ahead.
I'm also here if you guys want me to fill in
Yeah,
again. Apologize.
thank you, Marty. Seth, do you want to finish up what you were saying?
Yeah, where did I get cut off? It's those new Apple headphones, and they went off in my pocket and just fucked everything up.
All the commercial real estate and all the.
Yeah, great. So cool. So biggest challenge point right now is a global collapse in commercial real estate, and we're really fortunate to sit in kind of this petri dish that Ben, the owner of Wildwood, kind of is in and of himself, where he's got multiple hotels that are collapsing right now. He has numerous apartment buildings in New York that are the people can't pay their rent. Acreages in upstate New York that are perfect development properties for you know, anything that we could really want to do, from subdividing large scale 700 acreages in New York to 600 in Costa Rica to shit all over the planet. But he's one of numerous people like this, probably thousands. And the challenge that we see right now is that coming back online to kind of community interaction means interoperability between spaces and a fundamental shift in how physical spaces are going to actually operate. So we saw that we're really going to need to get in the bunker, kind of an innovation space around what's most needed from a tool set to actually start to have interoperability between the spaces again. So from a data and transparency kind of thing, I'm very interested in how, instead of actually opting into kind of government data transparency and having them track us, how do we just do that based on communities? We have conversations right now going with Tile, which I think is probably pretty interesting, and it's going to go hand in hand with, I think, numerous other things that are online, including something that Damian and I have been working on for about a year and a half. I'm sure he spoke about it earlier, but what Presence is doing from our the Presence platform that Damian built is really like it's almost like a programming solve for commercial real estate. So when you sit that adjacent to things like Savannah, things like Tile, and then you start to look at how these buildings actually create data transparency, and the communities do that as well, it starts to get really interesting. So what I think we're really focused on is to create a kind of a suite of tools all together and really go out to these commercial real estate investors and holders that are just like, fuck, what are we going to do? And the opportunity here is that, you know, we knew the commercial real estate was going to, the market was going to collapse, and we built Presence's entire business plan on that to begin with. However, what actually is occurring now is just happening 10x faster than we thought it would. So you have your shopping malls and your cruise ships and your trains and everywhere. So we can't fix it all. But what can we do? We can come up with new systems and modulate those systems and ship those systems. But that requires not only working together, but all of our little technologies that we're building coming into a head together and saying that we're actually sitting on a suite of things together. And that's really, I think, what I'm focused on. I'll go out and torchbear into the world and actually enroll these people in all the things that we're actually sitting on together. And I think many others will do the same. But what we really need to focus on, and I spoke to this last time, is just making sure that like none of us are carrying the thing. All the torches go into the big flame, and we really just need to focus on collaboration right now. And the more that we collaborate, we're going to have an infinite amount of resources. If there's anything the commercial real estate market holds, it's that the property value, while going down right now, is still the most valuable thing. Commercial real estate is still the most valuable thing on the planet. And so to me, what I really, really care about is how all of these different kind of tools that everybody is building, how they play together. And I just like, you know, I say it again and again and again, things like Savannah House, places like Baja, places like Wildwood, and assemblage like Magdalena's inside right now and created a brilliant ecosystem in New York that's going through some really challenging times right now as well. Not only with the passing of Rodrigo a couple days ago, but just the kind of overarching, like having a building in New York is kind of a pain in the ass right now. But what we have are these spaces where interoperability not only between communities can occur, but where we can get together, we can look at each other in the face, and we can say, let's work together. And that is literally, I'm just going to continue to torchbear that, because we are holding so many powerful and beautiful things. And the more that we actually focus on strategic partnerships and essentially, you know, long-term, it's like we're sitting inside a DAO. Nobody's going to create like the ultimate DAO. We're already in it, right? So we're just figuring that out as it emerges. Playing together is key. Surrendered leadership is key. Stay focused, work together, and let's just keep building. And that's the only thing that we can do right now. And I'm really committed as we start, as the ecosystems or the cities start to unlock a little bit. I want to share operating principles and interoperability kind of protocols, so that like so between Savannah and like Chosen and Wildwood and Assemblage and a few others, we can pass people in between, because we're not going to be able to be pinned down forever. That's not how our community works, and I'm sure most of you are kind of going a little bit insane. So what that means is data transparency. What that means is actually sharing who's been sick, who hasn't, where people are going, what they're doing, and saying, you know what, I trust you, you trust me, let's keep moving. But let's get out of the state of fear and actually into a state of just interoperability. And so I'm really committed to that with all of you. That's why I'll keep showing up to all these calls. Sorry I was in late today, and I'm committed to being with you guys in this journey.
Seth, what a strong finish. Thank you, Seth. Dude. So good, so good. Let's chat next week on and go through the game. So delighted to have you here. Danny.
Oh, I just want to say, Seth, I really resonated with so much of what you said, and I resonated with so much of what all of you have shared. And when I think about this, part of what I'm hearing is like this decentralized open source community hub models, where you have both physical and digital, you know, community hubs all over the world. And as part of it, what we're all doing is we're all iterating on these different ideas, you know, as communities, small and large. And what I would love to see, and I know these things already exist, but I don't know exactly where to go for it, is where, you know, like to your point, Monty, there's so many people working on similar ideas who have similar visions, similar passions, all iterating, and oftentimes in silos. Yeah. Right? And what makes me so excited about these spaces is that the coming together of all these like divergent networks and what that means. And imagine that on a, you know, larger scale. And so one thing I was thinking of as you were saying that, Seth, was just, you know, where do we, to your point, like I come from like a Wikipedia background, right? And so like where do we source these ideas? How can we do that where it's not like anyone's actually in charge, right? But it is this decentralized model, open source, transparent, where you can source all these different ideas and projects and just find people, you know, within our networks, but also outside of those networks. How can we do that? And one thing I think of that we haven't really talked about here when we look at 10 years down the road is that so much of the world is not really online right now. Like we're taking this very like global, and it's like there's been this assumption as we talk about technology that the world is online. Like so much is not online in the global south, South Asia, etc. And what's happening in the next 10 years is that the world comes online.
Yep.
Truly, and what does that mean? And so, you know, so when I think about that perspective, I think of not only what does that mean from idea sharing. You know, so often what you see is you have, you know, whether it's in India or a Nigeria or wherever, you have technologies that leapfrog, you know, because people are just, you know, iterating out of necessity. And how can we learn from those folks, and vice versa? How can people, as they come online, not make the same mistakes that we all did, right? And have it just be completely, you know, bulldozed by consumerism, capitalism, and, you know, homogenized by, you know, a small number of corporations taking over that space. How can we actually reclaim that? But then also think about that, and if, you know, if we are in this privileged role, I really mean this truly privileged role of being able to help shape some of these rules and structures. How do we do it from the place of equity? So earlier people were talking about, you know, AI and ethical AI. A huge part of ethical AI is thinking about the biases that we all carry with us, conscious or unconscious. And so as we create these protocols, as we create these systems, really keeping that sense of equity in mind, and really thinking about not just ourselves, not just our communities, the ones that look and feel like us, and use the same language and all that, which is amazing, I love it, but like how can we think about all those folks who are gonna have similar dreams, who are going to be coming online, who want to create these new worlds and these, you know, and you know, are seeing this and feeling this, and how can we really create systems that have those people in mind as well and incorporate those folks? well. So really thinking about this like decentralized, open source, and really egalitarian model. So just wanted to share that perspective, and it's a huge thanks to all of you for sharing such wonderful ideas. It's really inspiring to be in this with you all.
Yeah, thank you, Dami. Yeah, thank you.
Last thing, just love the idea of doing like, to keep it kind of local for a second. I love the idea of doing like community swaps. At some point, I think that's such a local.
It's key. It's where, in
The future of retail is right here.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So there's coherence is going to happen. Coherence is going to happen in physical spaces, right? It's when we meet, it's when we lock eyes and when we say, I trust you. And without having interoperability, if we can't get it right on the ground in our own core community between like the fucking 30 spaces that we have, we're not going to ship anything out into the rest of the world, right? Especially because we're actually sitting on most of the technologies necessary to do this. But a lot of people get into their own individual bunkers and think that their technology is the thing. It's like, no, they all play together, get all the technologies to play together, get all the spaces to play together, punt everybody around, let them start spinning through. When we've tested our model enough, then we ship it.
Boom. Yeah, Seth, this is very much like the structure. Everything's open source. How we've been thinking about the game is it's in the Planetary Commons from the get-go. The actual structures are going to be a platform cooperative that every player becomes a kind of essentially a citizen of this kind of planetary game. So we're trying not to be any one thing, but like infrastructure to support all of the many, and it's just one layer of it. Thank you so much, Seth. Hunter, we're over time, so we're gonna wrap up with our CZO, our Chief Zen Officer, who keeps us all meditating twice a day and is got an incredible community that he stewards called the Modern Mind. Highly recommend if you're interested in learning meditation. He's your man. And share some wisdom, Sizzle.
Okay. I didn't know I'd be sharing tonight, but first I want to say thank you to everybody who joined tonight and shared, and it's wonderful to hear all your different perspectives, and I think community is so important, and I think it's speaking to the point that Danny brought up in terms of equity, just making sure that we have everybody coming to the table and doing our part to really connect with more people. So I want everyone to think about who else maybe who hasn't shown up at this table that you think might be valuable to bring to the table, because our networks are limited, and we want to expand this outward and include everyone from the get-go, and make it an impact. So everyone has a voice equally from the start. So that's what's coming to mind right now. I think that's super essential and important. I'll leave you with that, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next coming weeks for those of you who decide to leap into the up game.
Thank you. Thank you, Hunter. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Really appreciate so much wisdom shared tonight, and this is shared online. You can see it on the Facebook page if you want to share it, and we're going to follow up next week with an invitation on the 1st of June. And if there's others that you think would be great to add to that, that'd be most appreciated. And we'll follow up with an explanation of how the game works and what the seed stage of the game is and what it means to be a founding player. And as we depart and say goodnight to each other, I would love to end with the words of White Eagle on community. This is a very precious passage to me, and I thought it would be a beautiful place to close the container. Man seeks individualism because he seeks self-consciousness, but later he learns that the way to God consciousness is through the group. You think of yourselves as individuals, as monads, because you are learning expression on the outer plane. But my brethren, you have yet to learn that you are part of a group. You, the individual, we liken to the proton, and around you circulates the electrons. You must open your consciousness to this divine cosmic reality. You are nothing. Of yourselves you can do nothing. You cannot live alone. You have many selves, many personalities. You belong to your group, and your group belongs to many other groups, which form a community. And that community belongs to many other communities, which form a sphere, and so on and on. Every man or woman who thinks that he or she is separate and lives with this thought of self-life is living in darkness. Humanity is learning by the hard way this truth of group life, of brotherhood, of sisterhood, of cooperation and expansion of the little consciousness into the God consciousness. The only way you can realize this is through pure love. Look up into the heavens and see this truth demonstrated in the myriad stars. I am nothing, yet I am all when I recognize all. Thank you so much. Beautiful to end with the words of White Eagle. Thank you for all your time tonight. I'm off on a date with Babaji now. Great to see you all.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo, for coming in from Costa Rica. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Vishal.
Thank you,
Thank
Lucian.
you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Miriam.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Love.
Love.
Love.